Wow. This song is just unbelievable.
Well, what are you listening to?
Bird with a Broken Wing.
Oh, cool.
That song is unbelievable.
Thanks. Yeah, I love that one.
I love that song. That is like McCartney, Harrison levels. Like, that's mastery, bro.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, it's so moving.
Can we talk about that song before we talk any further about this album? Just because I can't shake the image from my head, and just like, don't feel bad for me. I'm right where I want to be. Like, wow. Like, where were you when you wrote that?
I was literally right here. And gosh, I wasn't prepared to talk about that one. I think I was just feeling pretty irrelevant and passed over, and like past my prime, I guess, and just feeling pretty sorry for myself.
No shit. But wow, you really tapped into that emotion, and you found something, and you were able to express it and turn it into art. I mean, you probably lost track of the amount of times that music has shown up for you like that, where you just didn't know how else to get past it, and a song gave you the key. Yeah,
that's a good point, man. That's I remember starting in my 20s, like my song started to do that for me. And it was the greatest solace you could feel in your life, is listening back to a recording of your song and being like, oh yeah, like, yeah, he gets me. I get me. Yeah. It's to hear it articulated so precisely, it's just a wonderful feeling of being seen and heard.
It's the most beautiful trade, because you get to better understand yourself in ways you could never do cerebrally. And we get to better understand that we're not alone, because there'll be people out there that'll hear Bird with a Broken Wing and go, it's okay. Like, I'm all right. I can feel like this today, because it's a totally relevant feeling to feel irrelevant. Well, congratulations on surprising us once again. Your band has just become so full of surprises. I mean, you always were. I mean, you know, from the minute you came out with your debut album and just sold millions of records, and then dropped Pinkerton and then disappeared. It's like surprises all the time. But I much prefer these surprises where we get more music.
Yeah.
And this record sounds to me like it wasn't part of the plan, that it was something that kind of presented itself even to you and the band, because I felt like we were on a one-way ticket to Van Weezer.
Yeah, well, I think we started this record in 2017, and it was I just went over to Jake's house. Jake is the producer, and he had the idea for the album. It was just like this tiny little seed of an idea he planted in my brain that day. It was, all right, just you and a piano, and then an orchestra, and it's going to be like super personal, quirky songs that only you could write, not worrying about commercial potential at all. And he gave me another album called Nilsson Sings Newman, that came out in the early 70s. And he said, listen to this, check this out, and then bring in all your love of classical music, of Beethoven and Bach, and just really go for it. And I was just so excited from day one, and the songs came very quickly and easily. And we recorded, then we recorded the strings at Abbey Road, and recorded the band, and say we're about 90% done. And then the whole Hella Mega thing happened. It's like, okay, this is going to be your 2020. You're going out with Green Day and Fall Out Boy, and you guys better bring the rock, because these are the big boys, and you want to look good, and you're going to be in these stadiums with like 80,000 screaming rock fans. And we're like, okay, we have this piano orchestra album with introspective songs.
Hello, Miami. It's not the Weezer show you're expecting. Appreciate your patience.
So yeah, we decided, like, you know what? Let's put this one on hold for a minute, and let's make like this killer stadium heavy metal rock album.
Yeah.
And so we went ahead with Van Weezer. We got that one wrapped up, and we're about to put that one out, and then the pandemic happened, and the whole tour got bumped to 2021. So at that point, we're like, well, we can't put out this heavy metal record now. And
no one wants to rock.
How can you promote a rock album if you can't rock?
Yeah.
So, well, at that point, we said, let's go back and finish up Okay
Beautiful.
Human. Yeah, and so that's where we are now. We got 2 albums coming out in the space of a few months.
Here's the bittersweet thing that as a Weezer fan, a long-suffering and long-obsessed Weezer fan who's been just waiting to try and find some kind of rhythm to keep my mind at ease that I'm going to get a Weezer album or I'm not going to get a Weezer album. What's going to happen? How's that going to happen? Right? that it finally caught up to even you. That even you were surprised. Even you're like, man, I can't even control the jokes anymore. Like, jokes on me now. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's good, man. Weezer is prepared. Whatever the world throws at us, we got an album for you.
yeah, no, you sure do. This is a stunner. And I speak to musicians who get to a point in their lives where they're able to really lean into the idea of orchestration completely. It's something that people dabble in order to create new emotional resonance in a song. But if you really lean into orchestration completely, it has to be at a certain point in your life and in your career where you really feel like you're emotionally ready to experience that. What was it like for you hearing these songs that you wrote at your piano, sometimes feeling at your most vulnerable, come to life with a 38-piece orchestra, which is, it's an out-of-world experience.
Oh yeah, oh my God. I knew this day was coming. Like I've always been such a fan of classical music and opera and I knew it was coming. I think, and yet I feel like it's overdue. Like, I just kind of got stuck in this pattern of like, okay, we're a rock band. This is what we do. We don't want to get soft too soon. It's this rock thing seems to be working. And, yeah. But really getting encouragement from Jake, and then, if there's just a light went off, like, oh, this is going to be great. And then, man, hearing it back for the first time with the orchestra, it's like, yeah, those are the chords I wrote, and that's the melody I wrote. But man, it's like
so much more width.
Yeah, it's like seeing in 3 dimensions for the first time or something. It's just gorgeous, and I can't believe we haven't done it before.
Because you have to get, in my opinion, you have to get to a point where you are emotionally prepared for the experience. You are emotionally prepared for that experience, because otherwise you may not appreciate it for what it really is, which is, like you said, these ideas and these emotions, these thoughts brought into vivid, just 8K HD 3D, just like, you've written so many songs, but you can't prepare for that.
Yeah. I would be interested to go back and hear some of the early albums. Like
I was going to ask you, which album do you think off the top of your head would be the one that would best fit? Now you've done this experience with an album purposely built for orchestration. Which of your previous Weezer albums do you think would be a natural fit on step one?
The one I'd be most interested in hearing is Pinkerton. Those are the most complex songs, and they're the most emotional songs. And yet, the way we recorded is so raw, 4-piece rock noise.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to hear that with an orchestra.
You've got such an opportunity now, because if you wanted to express it through that filter, because we're entering into a really important milestone. 25 years this year for that album.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe in the fall we can put together some kind of tour with theaters with an orchestra.
Incredible.
And do OK Human in Pinkerton.
So much was amongst fans who fell in love with you so quickly. Like, it was just an overnight obsession. That the debut album really, I think we all really got the nuance of the band really quickly as fans. It wasn't like, oh, cool, this fits into the MTV box. It's like, nah, there's something really deep going on here. There's stories here. There's real insecurities and anxieties here. This is what you really look for in a lifetime relationship with music, And
right.
then Pinkerton came out. And it just seemed like the whole thing had tipped upside down, and you were searching for a way out of something. And I think as we get to 25 years on that, I sort of wonder how your perspective on that time in your life has changed in relation to that album, and who you were and what was going on.
I don't think my perspective has changed at all. I feel like that was such a rough time, and just everything went wrong, and I made so many wrong moves, so many self-destructive moves, and destructive of other people too. So I just have so many regrets, and like, oh man, like I would not want to go through that again. And I feel like I'm in a much better place.
Of course you are. Can you listen to that album though? Can you reflect on that album as a body of work?
Oh yeah, I love it, and especially I love the sound of my voice. It's very low in the mix. I'd love to hear a remix of the vocal louder, but there's just so much pain and vulnerability in my voice.
I mean, right from the get-go, right from Tired of Sex, which is like, at that point in my life, I'd only ever heard sex being put on a pedestal.
Right.
I get so much sex, or I want to sex you up, or sex is the whole point, or I'd never heard somebody actually come out and say like, I'm using it to destroy myself. It's a tool to help me dismantle my self-esteem.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that before.
There's got to be something more.
Yeah. I mean, and that moment when you're singing those notes across that album is just, you're right. It's a very raw experience to listen to as a fan. It's funny, isn't it, that we find these albums that sometimes cause the most pain when you make them become the most loved amongst us.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is disillusioning at all, but I think some of the pain you hear in my voice is actually physical. Like, I think at that time I was going through this procedure on my leg where I had all these pins and spikes and wires going through my muscle and bone. And, for like a year and a half, and there's this constant pain. Wow. And like I went right in the middle of that. I went and recorded the vocals for the album. So I just sound like I've been through a lot, and I think some of that is physical. And maybe if you want to have a really great vocal performance, you could consider some kind of self-torture device.
Surgery?
Yeah.
Put a clamp on your leg. I mean, they joke about that back in the day. That was always the joke about the Bee Gees, right? Where it's just like, well, you're going to have to put on some tight trousers if you want to sing those notes. Do you know what I mean? But you're actually qualifying the fact that physical pain can resonate through an emotional performance, which is incredible, really, because I never knew that.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd put myself through that again willingly, but yeah, I'm glad it's on the record.